If you live in the Twin Cities metro and you're a fan of alternative music, you've heard of Mary Lucia, the former radio DJ on NPR's The Current. You may also know her for another reason. She had a stalker, and the story made news headlines. Her gripping details and snappy writing you can read in her memoir, What Doesn't Kill Me Makes Me Weirder and Harder to Relate to. Well, welcome to Life Unscripted. Mary Lucia, we have never met before, but our paths, I'm certain, have crossed, and it's great to have you here. And this is the book that we're talking about, and you refer to it as a pint-sized grenade, the stories, and I have to agree, it's really fantastic.
It is. It's a tiny grenade, and though we haven't met, I'm sure our paths crossed at the Minnesota State Fair.
Yes, tales to tell.
Oh, my.
Great to have you here. Your book is really, well, first of all, it's fun, it's insane, and I had heard this story before, and we're going to get into, the reason, the stalker and all of that, but I think what's important is the story before then, who you are, the family that you were raised in, because I think it probably plays a big part in how you write and your unique look on the world. So you've got a eccentric, weird family. Mm-hmm. You're from that ilk.
Mm-hmm. Grew up with parents that we called by their first names because that was indicative that they weren't comfortable being associated as the mom or the dad. So it was a little strange to call your dad Hal when you're, 4, but we did. And he was a very eccentric person. He was somebody who, while struggling with chemical dependency, happened to be the life of the party. He was the lampshade Charlie and the guy who had the non sequiturs that were akin to like Yogi Berra. Just the things that I still remember him saying, and just his behavior was perfectly acceptable because I didn't know anything else. But I mean, this is the man who he could swim with a lit cigar in his mouth, and he toasted the bread for the birds in the winter so they could have a hot meal. I think I got a little of that from him, and all kinds of things. One thing I don't know if I can curse, but
yes, you can curse.
Okay, every time, think of how many times a person sneezes in their lifetime. Every time he sneezed, it was, God damn it! Sometimes 4, 5 in a row, wherever we were, the entirety of my life. So just to say that I was growing up around people that were just slightly left of center is no exaggeration. And then I'm the youngest, and my siblings, there's a massive difference between the oldest siblings who are all clustered. And by the time I came around, parenting was over. That was not a concern. And I kind of feel like one of those wild kids that just ran the neighborhood, like with no rules.
Wild child.
Yeah.
And your relationship, I feel like a lot of people could say, was complicated with your mother.
Very. She was, like I said, I don't think every woman is cut out to be a mom, and I actually can understand a lot of that. But I think she was a person that had her own trauma and had her own story, things that were unresolved. And it did carry into her life, and it carried into how empathetic or not she was to other people. But yeah, it was a relationship that I had struggled with for many, many years, and wanted to get her help for various things. And maybe there was a generational thing of like, I don't want to talk about that. But it had a distance, and so there was always a bit of strange judgment and questioning just everything. And I'm the least screwed up of anybody in my family, and yet I was constantly treated like Charles Manson. So,
okay, so you've got this unique family, and you, at some point in your life, decided, well, you went to school, and then you ended up getting into the radio business, and have a huge following, and anybody who loves the current and alternative music, rock and roll, that is your world. You know it, inside and out.
Yeah, I think that everyone should be so lucky as to have, at least once in their life, just some renegade spirit who takes a chance on you, whether you have experience for a job or not. When I was living in New York, going to NYU, I was studying theater, and I'd heard there was this new station that was launching, and Club DJ from First Avenue was behind it, Kevin Cole. I ended up cold calling him, which is something I would never even think to do today. But at the time, I cold called him. We had a lovely chat. He invited me to Minneapolis, and then ended up hiring me, full time. I was 7 to midnight on Rev 105. So he saw something in me that was clearly, it wasn't radio experience, but it was either life experience or other things in my background. And like I said, I'm really grateful that there was someone who said, I know you don't have experience, but I'll take a chance.
Hey, I want to tell you about a product that I absolutely love. They are my Cozy Earth pajamas. They are just soft and buttery, and I can't tell you, I would actually prefer to wear them all day long. Now, I have arranged a 41% discount for my listeners, for my viewers. If you go on to CozyEarth.com and use the promo code AKLife, you are going to get 41% off. Just think about that. Not just pajamas, but also socks and sheets and pillowcases. Just be cozy. It's that time of year. And this is important. The 41% off deal with Cozy Earth only lasts until February 28th. So act fast. It's the culture of radio, and this is one thing of many, actually, that we have in common. Mm-hmm. But, I'm a former disc jockey and went through the small markets and medium markets and came back to Minneapolis in radio, in music, and really changed where things became much more automated. And,
yes,
it just wasn't the same back when I was actually playing records at a station in North Platte, Nebraska, truly some of them my own.
Yeah.
And working at the Brass Latch Lounge in the Holiday Inn that was then broadcast on the radio station in North Platte. So it was a live show.
Okay.
And I mean, that kind of stuff really, I don't know if that even really happens anymore, especially like the playlist was kind of like very loose.
Yeah.
And I could just, play whatever records and hopefully they're not too scratched up and don't talk over the ramp, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. But the radio culture is different. It's, first of all, very male oriented. And there are a lot of kind of renegades and, maybe unconventional people, which is something that, this, guy, Kevin, saw in you. But then you must have also went, this is my world. I love this.
Here's my motto in life. It's like, I'm sure everything comes with a handbook or instructions, but the person who would rather try to assemble an IKEA desk on my own without looking at the instructions. So I had no idea what the rules of being on radio were, which I think ultimately has always served me pretty well because I just sort of go by gut instinct and, this seems like this might be okay. So it's been just this constant learning process, and the development of who I was on air truly just started out of a place of, I don't know any better, so I'm just going to say what I say and be who I am, and there's no second persona. Like, I'm not this person on air and then somebody completely different off air. And that's something that I feel very sad that radio's moving away from. They don't really want the personality-driven radio. In fact, I think at one time it was celebrated if you stood out. Now it's more of a homogenized, no, we don't need any one person standing out. We need it all to sound cohesive, which to me is
boring. Yeah, agreed. The playlists that you worked with, were those playlists that I know some of them, you curated, that was also unique, is the range of music that you were playing and the kind of people that were also listening.
Yeah, I mean, I could do my TED Talk about radio programming in about 5 minutes. And it's what the public doesn't know is that a radio station will always come on the air as a new entity and sound so bold and take so many chances, and people fall in love with that. What eventually happens over time, somebody realizes it's no longer making as much money, or the numbers and ratings are down, and inevitably the changes are the least creative things possible. They bring in a consultant who says, cut the library in half, play songs more often, and you're on the front line taking all the heat, but all this is going on behind the scenes. But it has happened in every radio job I've had. When you first launch, it's like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. And then within maybe the first year or so, people start to notice, oh God, this sounds more watered down. It sounds... And the people are not afraid to tell you. And, for years and years, I just kind of listened. And then I thought, well, I'm not making these decisions. But when people start to hear repetition, that is a program director trying desperately to attract the undecided listener, which is akin to the undecided voter on November 3rd. I don't give anything about that person. If you don't know what music you like at this age, step aside. It's like, there's people who do. So
being in radio and people feel they know you and just your voice, but you appeal to people because they love that you're kind of this, as I said, unconventional, slightly eccentric person who is not afraid to say what you want, which also, was appealing to so many. And then it also attracted some real freaks.
Let me ask you, because I would be hard-pressed to believe that a woman in media, whether it be television, radio, print, you don't have your fair share of what maybe starts off as just a boundaryless listener, watcher, fan. I was used to that from the very beginning of my radio career. And progressively, yes, there were some more odd things that happened with listeners. And you definitely know when it has crossed a line into your personal safety is in jeopardy. How the company you work for handles it is huge, or doesn't handle it. I really think that a lot of people listen and watch people on television, and it's an intimate experience. Most people are probably alone in their home, and they do start to identify with you and think, oh God, I know this person. And I will say, if you do your job well, they do know you, to a degree, of course. But if you involve somebody who's got delusional thoughts and true mental illness, it becomes a completely different animal.
It does. And I know you get into this in your book. When you first alert the people, your manager's like, hey, this seems concerning. Years and years ago, it was kind of like, well, you're in the business.
Yes.
You're in the business and you want attention or fill in the blank. This comes with the territory, ... And you're like, well, no, that's not why I'm into radio, TV, news, whatever. And you did the same. You're like, well, all right, this has crossed the line. This stalker of yours was sending you mail and sending you packages at the station.
It started at the station and progressively just got stranger and more threatening and more explicit. And the message was that I was in some extreme danger and that he would be the only person that could help me. And the obsessiveness of the communications, whether it be emails, letters, this was all done without knowing who this person was, no name, nothing attached to know who it was. So if you wanted to get an order of protection or a restraining order, you have to have their address. You have to have all of this information. So it went on for so long because this person was, I believe, considered indigent. They weren't really at an address. So that on top of everything, it dragged this into a 3-year ordeal.
It's that time of year where the air is dry, our skin is dry, and we need hydration. We need a facial in a bottle, and you can find that at Love Indus. Also, they have a serum that is beautiful, Botox in a tube. These products will nourish and they'll plump your skin. They are fantastic, and I have a deal for you. In fact, you can get 21% off of all the products at loveindus.com. That's where you can find them. Also, look in my show notes and click on the link for 21% off for great skincare with Love Indus. And when this first happened, when you realized it crossed the line, I'm sure from that point on, you, as you say in the book, you look everywhere. You look at everything differently. How you communicate to your radio listeners, and just everything you do. And being also someone who has lived alone for a long time, and you don't like that feeling of all of a sudden having to, be afraid, be concerned. Mm-hmm. You were there. This was scary.
I think in media, and it's part of the job to some degree, is you're promoting shows, and you're saying, I'll be there Friday, hope to see you there. That became something I couldn't do anymore. I couldn't even say, I'm interested in this show tonight. Let's talk about it tomorrow on the radio. I just, all of a sudden, my whereabouts, I didn't want anyone to know. And I do think also in this time of social media and the parasocial relationships, there's an encouragement from the companies to get your social media going, get it out there. And we all did it because we felt, well, this is part of the job. And particularly my job at The Current, I felt, because I was an original hire and I also ended up as the brand voice of the station. So there was a certain amount of, spotlight, if you will, on me. Mm-hmm. And
no doubt
that I held that position for as long as I did. So, I felt like I was definitely being pushed to the front, which was fine until it became not fine. And the first couple of experiences, I don't know that I even really told anybody at my work. It wasn't until the escalation of weirdness in which I had to. Now, I had certain managers that were not ideal to tell something as vulnerable as, oh my God, I feel completely threatened by a stranger. And I was just uncomfortable talking to a couple of these dudes that I worked for. So part of that also just played into that feeling of isolation. You just started feeling like, hence the title, it's like, I don't know that anyone can relate to me, because if you haven't gone through it, you probably don't know.
Yeah, I would agree. I've certainly had those experiences, not to the extent, but getting ready for work and seeing a cell phone in my window.
Oh, God.
There was a bowling ball incident there where I had security at my home for a while. Mm-hmm. But, at some point, they've got to cut that time off. It's like, okay, we're going to be at your house for a week or 2 weeks, and then nothing is resolved. And I think you did a really good job of sharing the frustration of when you have this problem, mm-hmm. going through the legal process, mm-hmm. and actually being able to do anything about it. You really are, helpless.
Yeah. The feeling of being helpless was overwhelming and brand new to me because there hadn't, up until that point, been something I couldn't just handle on my own. The responses that I would get when I did reach out and say, I'm so vulnerable. This was before Ring cameras. Okay, we have to remember
right.
this.
Everyone is recorded now.
Everything is recorded. I literally had to beg because the Minneapolis police kept saying to me, "You have to have your work install a security camera, like a 7-Eleven mm-hmm. camera, on your house." In order for us to arrest him. So then that became me trying to convince them that I was worth whatever mm-hmm. the couple $100 was to put a camera at my house. So even just within 10 years, that's changed so much. So also walking down, we had a lawyer. Well, if there's anything that NPR has, it's lawyers. So, but nobody helped me. I didn't have They didn't set me up with a lawyer. They didn't set me up with security. I was twisting in the wind alone on this. But the one thing I will never forget is bringing just some package of horror that had been dropped off to our lawyer's office. And she said, I'm going to craft a cease and desist letter. This is when we thought stuff like that would work. Mm-hmm. And she tapped away on her computer and then turned her laptop for me to see what she had written to the stalker. And it was, please refrain from giving gifts to hosts. But thanks for listening and supporting Minnesota Public Radio.
The end of that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Considering the kind of letter that's being written and the formality of it.
Yes.
Because there wasn't a person known at that point. And it took quite a while for them to find that person. And you had to go through a lot of hoops just on your own to feel, safety in your own home. Mm-hmm. And even help from your brother who have unusual ways with sounds like all the love in the heart, but you'd question like, is this going to work? But okay, I love your dedication.
Yes. You start to feel like you're so alone because I wasn't really getting help from my work. I wasn't really getting help from the police. And so you almost assume this kind of vigilante style, like I got to do this on my own. But it is nice to have friends that will say, I'll sleep in your yard if you'd like. And I almost took them up on it. And the fact that, I was just sitting there. I lived alone. I had my dogs. I didn't really know any of my neighbors. And I kept thinking, what must they think? The cops are at my house at least twice a week for over a year. They probably thought I was dating a cop because it was like, why is there a black and white out in front? And it was weird because also when I was trying to explain both to my employer and even to law enforcement, I don't know this person. I think stalking, which is a felony, most people and the police know of domestic stalking, which a person you previously had a relationship with or a landlord or somebody. When I would say to them, I don't know who this is, I've never met them, they've never met me, I'm on the radio. This person's merely heard my voice. Obsessed
with you.
Only heard my voice. I could see them. It was hard to process that. And it was kind of a hindrance. And that went around and around in just the act of getting a restraining order served. I don't know if people know that. First of all, you have to pay for it. Yeah. And secondly, getting an order of protection is one thing. Serving it is a whole other thing. And that can take months and months and months if somebody is not at one address.
Doing their best to hide that information.
And there were times that he would leave things in my yard and I knew he had just been there. So there was that sense of I'm always looking to see, are they just right around that corner? And the things that started coming to my house, it did.
If you can give one example.
Yes.
I know there are a lot of stories in the book about the kind of things that he was doing.
Yeah.
But just to give, an idea of what, you were experiencing on a daily basis.
Right. Well, the one that blew the doors off at work was he had sent 10 pounds of raw meat. And so there was butcher paper sitting by my mail slot with my name on it. So I kind of thought, oh, good. If this is the starting place, where are we going from here? And no, they didn't disappoint. There was also an instance which was so mind-boggling, but a pile of black dirt was left on my front stoop with a sympathy card sticking out of the top like a freshly dug grave. But all I could think was, how did you where did this dirt come from? How did you do this? It was ridiculous. And then when it became, I had a privacy fence and little locks on my gates and things, he would throw things over the top of the fence. There were Polaroid pictures. The obscenity and explicit nature also became so concerning because, of course, I never responded to this person. And if you don't respond to somebody who desperately wants your attention, it can either agitate them and amp things up, or maybe they might, if you're lucky, move on. This did the amping up. I never responded, so in this person's mind, I was just this promiscuous person that the things that were leveled at me and in print, it just shook me to my core.
Have you ever gotten up from a great night's sleep, but then you look over at your pillowcase and you're like, ew, what's on there? Well, I have the perfect solution and a great gift for the holidays. They're called Copper North pillowcases. And what makes these unique is these are copper-infused silk pillowcases, which means they're antibacterial. They'll keep your pillowcase cleaner. Also, your skin will be glowing more and your hair less frizzy, less breakouts. They're great gift ideas. And this is what's perfect. They're also machine washable. So I've arranged a 15% discount for my listeners. Just use the promo code. You can find it in my show notes. Click on that link and you will see the Copper North pillowcases. But again, you still have time. So at some point, through this process, you decided, at what point did you decide to write this book?
I think that whilst I was in the middle of all of this, there was some scribbling. And for me, I've always written, but I've always written columns, and that's like a finite amount of words. And so there is a brevity to how I write in an economy. And I don't think it's dissimilar from my speaking voice. So I would write things down because, frankly, Alix, I thought I was losing my mind at times. And this is so loud and cluttered up here that one way to just make a little space and room was to just get it down, even if it was just scribbling what had happened one particular night or one thing that I had felt or some of the physical effects I was going through. So maybe even unconsciously, I wasn't sure at the time I was writing a book, but I also knew, too, that the changes that were happening, things I had to make changes in my life, dictated by a stranger, I got so resentful of that. And I thought, I'm not going to go through this without something as an outcome creatively. And I thought a book would be great.
Writing can be very cathartic, and maybe during that process in the beginning, it was really just about documentation too. It's like I need to write this down, so if they find my body in the sorry, it's good to have that, and the way that you put the story together, intermixed with your life and your colorful ways of storytelling. I've got to say, it was really unique. You have a unique voice, and I can, I understand why people are drawn to you. When I was reading it and envisioning you in this life while you're in the radio, and then you're like at all these constraints now, and I can see. Number one, you have to pay for a lot of this stuff. And it is changing your life. And you didn't ask for it. And the management is not really getting the whole picture, or they're not really getting how serious it is and how incredibly frustrating that can be.
I felt as though I cut people an awful lot of slack because I thought, I can't expect you to fully understand what I'm going through. But where the problem was is there was no desire to even understand maybe what it was doing to me, because there was a definite business as usual model, like just you're a pro, get on, do your job. And I could do that up to a point, but I could tell that it was changing me on air. I just wasn't as open. And I felt like at my job, there was still a little bit of that sense of, well, you put yourself out there and this is going to happen. But I kind of started looking at it as like a workman's comp injury. I thought, this happened on the job, and there might need to be a little accountability from you people. Could you just help me?
Right.
And that, again, I feel like I kind of had to go through it the hard way. And if there's anything, I hope maybe they learned something. And, and of course I couldn't help but think if it was a male host that was in the position of all of this trauma, would they have handled it differently? Yeah.
And stepping away and from that, I know probably also caused some resentments within this some of the people you work with, like
Yeah.
that somehow it was, a move in which a diva would make, or
Yes. Yes.
it is really that is crazy.
They wanted me to come back before I'd ever even gotten my day in court to give my impact statement because of so many, a lot of bureaucratic, like, it got postponed and then reset and postponed. So when I took my leave of absence, I literally thought, okay, I've got a court date in April. I'm going to take the month of April off to deal with this, which then stretched over a period of 5 months. Him getting busted, going in jail, somebody paying his bail, which is always a curiosity. So I did not have my day in court until December, but my work wanted me to come back before that. My shrink, God love her, she had moved to North Carolina by this point, so my sessions were Skype. Not FaceTime, not Zoom,
Yeah,
Skype.
Wow, going back a few years, yeah.
So I was Skyping with my shrink, and she said, she started to talk to me about the amount of pressure she was getting from NPR about the paperwork aspect of a short-term leave. She said that it was almost overtaking the job she was trying to do by being a therapist, which I resented so strongly because they weren't making it easy for her. Every week it was, can she come back? Can she come back?
Yeah.
Is she ready to come back? And she sort of, I felt like, naturally kind of tapped out a little bit. She was inundated with paperwork. And so there's, again, a place where NPR just had zero understanding of the importance that I needed a little mental health help. So yeah, it was to me again, is this my job to teach everyone in this building what it's like?
I thought of an experience that I had in North Platte that I haven't thought about in a long time. This is a small town in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I had started getting some strange letters, and people weren't liking some of the music I was playing.
Yeah,
of course,
surprise, right. Mm-hmm.
And I was starting to feel something like maybe there's more to this. And then the next thing I know, at some point, I've been there for about 2 years. This totally random story, peeps. I'm at home. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. I worked the evenings. I'm in my robe. The door knocks. It's the police. And they come to my door and they say, "You're under arrest." And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why am I under arrest? And they went on to this very random story that didn't make any sense about a bill that I didn't pay and something. And truly, it was all I could really get out of them was that I didn't pay some bills, which, I mean, back then, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible I bounced a check or two.
Sure, but...
just saying, I was in my 20s. So what happened was the craziest thing. So they said, "Yes, you're under arrest." So then I'm in my robe. I'm like, "Well, can I go and get dressed?" Sure. I went into my bedroom, got dressed. They put the handcuffs on me, and I got in a car, drove like 2 blocks to the courthouse or whatever, and there I sat for a few hours, and I had to undergo a strip search. And the reason being was because I went into my bedroom and I could have put a gun, on me, like, "Oh, gee, I'm going to the jail. What should I pick up now? I get my, my pants on and put a gun back." It was insane, right?
Yes.
And they finally realized that. Lincoln County, of which I ended up suing Lincoln County.
Well, I would just say, yeah.
Yeah, I did. That was in the mid-'80s. So because of essentially, my human rights being violated, because there was no sense in that. So it was specifically tied to that. But I mean,
what the hell bill didn't you pay? I mean, really,
I never. Well,
in your imagination, what could it be?
Well, I don't know, but I don't think that was the reason. I guess my point is it wasn't that. I think that it was somehow related to something else.
Yeah.
But that never came out because, well, the station didn't really investigate. Plus, after that, it was wondering when the next thing was going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm like, How crazy. But then not too long after that, I ended up coming back to Minneapolis to work in radio.
Well, I do think that any media company, be it television, radio, or print, they're very concerned with optics. And they want to make sure that that storefront looks clean. And I think that there was sort of this averse feeling of like, that we don't want them to see the mess behind the clean window. And I was that mess.
Do you ever have an energy drink and you realize, oh, that's a little bit too much caffeine? Well, here's an idea for you. Aspire. Aspire energy drinks are so yummy. In fact, this one is mango lemonade, and it's delicious. Half the caffeine, and it also has green tea, a lot of great flavors, and I've arranged a great listener discount for you, 20% off if you use the promo code AKLIFE. So 20% off of these Aspire drinks at aspiredrinks.com. You will love feeling inspired with Aspire. So your last day on the air, your playlist, because if you read this and you're a fan of the music that you played and just who you are, I had started to play some of this at home. I never got through the whole list, but you have this playlist. This was May 2022. And you can either, I'll start it with the first 10 and then you can, what your last 10 was.
Sure.
Okay, so this was the playlist. I mean, this is great. Keith Richards, Take It So Hard. Feel free to comment, by the way.
Yeah.
New York Dolls, Personality Crisis. Guided by Voices, Motor Away. Patsy Cline, Strange. Billy Idol, Can't Break Me Down. I mean, obviously there's a theme going on here.
Correct.
So the Vaccines, Blow It Up. The Red Walls, Hung Up on the Way I'm Feeling. And Kathleen Edwards' Sidecar. I mean, that is where it begins. And so those are the first, 10 or whatever. Well, so explain how you came to that list and how you ended it.
I will tell you this, because this is something that people have brought up to this day. So I did all the proper things. I did the month's notice. I gave them every opportunity to reconsider letting me go, all of these things. So when I realized I was the one that needed to make the change, and I knew that I had this last day on air, I said, I'm going to play whatever I want. I'm going to probably talk very little. And I gave them this program, 4 hours of programming, 2 days ahead of time. I didn't even have to do that, but I just said, well, here, take a look at what I'm going to play. No one objected. Nobody raised an eyebrow. When I got done with my show, and I was in tears and a wreck, a lot of people were like, you really burned that place down to the ground. And I'm like, what? I'm like, first of all, I've always played songs.
Yeah, have you listened to my show?
That have some expression of something I can't say myself, but Tony Bennett, Count Basie, Are You Having Any Fun? Honestly, Brendan Benson, What I'm Looking For, Nick Lowe's So It Goes, The Spinners, I'll Be Around, Vis Queen, Crush on Radio, the Jayhawks, Don't Let the World Get in Your Way. So many of these artists that I had played, however, the one everyone pulled out and highlighted was Margot Price, Pay Gap. Now, this is a song we had been playing in regular rotation on the current. It's a succinct little arrow of a song. It's addressing a gender pay gap. And I've included it because, of course, that was part of a grievance I had. But it was the one thing people honed in on. And it was like, ooh, I can't believe you played that. And it was, to me, again, you can say a lot with the music selections. As another example, so when I left, it was late April of 2022. But I was there during the COVID lockdown. I was there during that dystopian, we're going to save a little bit of money and not turn the lights on in the building. So we were three of us were walking into this dark building. We had to have signage in our car to be on the roads. We all experienced it in a different way, but it was pretty crazy. And I, on my afternoon show, had to carry the Derek Chauvin trial live, the audio. And I was, as everyone, was a wreck that day. And Potsy, my program director, shot me a thoughtful text and said, well, just, have the perfect playlist ready to go. Either way, the verdict comes out. And I'm thinking, what does that mean? I mean, either way, like
They would be very different.
I'm like,
very
so
different.
I'll have to dig up some NWA and Body Count and Cop Killer. I'm like, what, are you crazy? And so the thing is that music had been able to do a lot of speaking for me. I think when people were at home during the lockdown and they were listening to radio more, people that were working from home and all of that. And there was a different kind of thoughtfulness I think I put into the curation of those playlists. But I will also say, too, that in order to have achieved what I achieved, I had to break a lot of rules. I'm just going to say it. I did not play always by the rules.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I love that about you, and everybody else does too.
Seriously, I think it's a program director's worst nightmare, but it's like, I think you got to know the rules to break them or bend them. And you got to assume your audience is as smart and creative and hungry as you are. And I just would never talk down to an audience.
Well, you did it well.
Thanks.
Really, you should get a chance and read the book. It is very funny, and obviously it's a lot of things. It's not just funny. It's horrifying, but you did such a great job in putting your story together, and I strongly urge you to see it. And the name of the book is, again, What Doesn't Kill Me Makes Me Weirder and Hard to Relate to.
Mm-hmm. It says it all, really.
It does. And you got to notice the front of the book, too. I love that cover.
Yes. Photo by Joe Gallup. I put on a 1930s silk velvet dress and an over-the-head pug mask and stood in my alley. You can see a garbage can in the background.
It just really says it all.
It does.
Well done.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for subscribing to Life Unscripted. Remember, when you purchase any item from my deals page, I get paid, and you support my podcast. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.